But yeah, very happy to be here. It's too bad, I was looking forward to riding on Brendan's coattails and being the second speaker, but here we are. So I do have a few notes prepared. Um, and I thought that I could come today and speak a little bit about the Red River Board's journey in exploring member engagement. And yeah, kind of representing from the board perspective. So yeah, that's kind of my plan. I'll tell you a little bit what we've been up to, and then hopefully we can just turn it into a little bit of a conversation. So definitely open to questions and see where we go from there. Although I see Brendan is on the line now. Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Brendan. Thanks for hopping on. Sarah, we'll
All
let you
right.
continue, and then you can bounce back and forth with Brendan maybe afterwards as well. So we'll let you continue.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sounds great. I'm the chair of the Red River Co-op's ad hoc committee on member engagement. And so this is a journey that the board set out on, I guess, last spring. And so it was, the committee was really struck and the project was really born out of conversations that we were having at the board table, a couple of questions and areas that board members just wanted a little bit more information on. And so the group decided that we would strike an ad hoc committee to kind of explore those questions, and then more broadly, kind of the area of member engagement and what that could mean for the board, what that could mean for the organization. And it's kind of interesting because we didn't set out to solve a problem. It wasn't a committee that was struck out of a specific region or a reason or a specific action, but really just to explore opportunity, have blue sky discussion, and kind of get a sense of what we could do. So that was a really interesting way to kind of start up a committee like that. And it really just kind of helped shape the tone of our work, I guess. And like I said, the committee was struck as ad hoc, not a standing committee at that point, and really just like the first thing that the committee needed to do was to get together, create a terms of reference, as most committees would need, and really kind of create a framework for the conversations that we would set out to have. So our goal was, kind of at the outset, was to strengthen member engagement and build a culture of ownership, connection, and shared purpose that supports Red River Co-op's sustainability, growth, and ability to fulfill its mission and long-term vision. And yeah, the kind of terms of reference are broken into kind of short and medium and long-term objectives. But really kind of the first bulk of the work is in exploration. So we were kind of talking in a blue sky way, throwing around ideas, throwing around thoughts. And it was a good space to do that because you don't always have time to have those types of conversations at quarterly meetings, and in the context of other boardroom discussions. It gave us a chance to look outside for good examples. And actually we engaged Brendan to come in and do a little bit of a session with our committee. Just really kind of seeing what's possible and laying out a vision. And then one of the kind of key tenets of that's included in terms of reference and then framing our work is dividing engagement into kind of the two kind of buckets. So there's organizational engagement and financial engagement. Financial engagement being, how members participate through the co-op, through purchases, through in other instances might be working for the co-op if it's a worker co-op. In our case, we're just retail. And then the other bucket being organizational engagement. So attending the AGM, voting on an annual basis, or maybe getting engaged in different committees at the organizational level. And as we were kind of talking about, before the call, there's, a lot of conversation about like, what is member engagement? Because you have kind of those two broad buckets, and then you also have questions like member engagement, which members, how do we engage them? Is it member outreach? Like, what's the goal? Like, so it could really, created a space for us to have those conversations, but really the task is to kind of rein it in and try to get a clearer sense of what we want to do as an organization. So really kind of the medium term objectives are creating kind of those frameworks and that shared language, clarifying the different types of engagement, putting forward a framework to the board so that we have sort of a shared understanding. And one of the kind of, I guess, better known membership frameworks is the IAP2 spectrum, which Brendan spoke to us about in the early days as well. So kind of this matrix of how organizations engage with their members. So you inform, consult, involve, collaborate, empower. And so you can kind of categorize the ways that you engage with members and invite increased engagement with members in those buckets. And then, just kind of wrapping up and, talking about organizational engagement. We talked about this again before the call. The easy kind of metrics to fall back on are, how many members attended your EGM? How many, what's your voter turnout? And so we've had a lot of conversations about, organizational engagement. Yes, we do want our members to be engaged at that level, but, do we need to kind of chase those vanity metrics? Is that the best bang for our buck? Or is it about creating like a stronger relationship with members? Kind of talking about, the quantitative and the qualitative and anyway, I'm sure lots of other co-ops have had those conversations at their board table as well. And I guess I'll just close by saying that's kind of, like I said, we're very much in an exploration kind of mode. It's still, we still kind of keep having these conversations. What do we aim to achieve? How do we deepen relationships with members? And where do we go from here? But I guess I would just say that, it is kind of muddy waters, and but it is certainly worthwhile. I think even just having the conversation is useful for really any organization and very worthwhile.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I look forward to having some question and answer with you once we hear from Brendan. But I'm going to turn it over to Brendan now, and I'll let him share the Assiniboine Credit Union story a little bit and some of his thoughts around member engagement.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vera. Sarah, I'm going to rename a page in our annual report the vanity metrics. I think that's that's brilliant. You're right. We do chase some of the numbers sometimes. And I know when I started with Assiniboine Credit Union, having worked with a lot of smaller cooperatives in our communities where engagement was really high, and especially with the worker co-ops where it's like, sometimes a consensus model, to come into a large cooperative, a credit union where the attendance and the voting participation rates were significantly lower. I struggled to kind of make sense of that because I've always been a very engaged member in the cooperatives I'm a part of. But it's a bit of a different context. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that some of those numbers are reflective of things and they're nice to have. I haven't quite heard them referred to as vanity metrics, but I get what you mean. And there's something a lot deeper that we really are trying to build. I think what I wanted to share was three things on the topic. One, I think it's the perspective of membership is important, and especially in a larger organization. And at Assiniboine Credit Union, we've worked at this quite deliberately, and we have a lot more work to do. And it's ongoing work to remind people that we're members of a cooperative. And the difference between membership in ACU and membership at a fitness center um, is often not super clear to people who are using the services of our cooperative. In part because there are many organizations where membership in something allows you to access the services of that place. The difference in a cooperative is that it's an ownership stake. And and that's not always very clear to everybody and not even to employees, I would say. And as soon as you get through explaining it to all the employees, you have 100 new employees, and so you're having that conversation again. But part of what I've often asked groups of employees is whether they perceive themselves, if they're honest and thoughtful and think about it, whether they perceive the people they interact with as member owners of our cooperative or as consumers of the cooperative. And I get mixed responses, right? And so those who've been in these conversations a lot more will answer very quickly, well, they're the member owners. We know that. But I often do hear that people kind of pause on that. It's like, I've never really thought about it that way before. And on the flip side, I ask them whether they think the members perceive them as employee owners who also happen to work at the credit union, or see themselves as member owners being served by an employee of the co-op. And I think some of those things might sound philosophical and nuanced or abstract, but I think they go to the heart of the idea of engagement because it really starts with how we see ourselves, whether it's working at and being employee owners and or using the goods and services of a cooperative. How do we see ourselves? How do we see each other? And how do we see those we're interacting with? Because if we all fundamentally, and really, I mean, if we go back to 1943, the founding of Assiniboine, 1938, the founding of Caisse Populaire and St. Malo, and all over the province, all the different co-ops and credit unions that started over the years. I mean, the first dozen people who sat around the kitchen table all 100% understood they were members, they were member owners, this was a cooperative, and they did this together. But as the years passed and new people come in and it grows to scale, some of that gets lost. But I think the more that fundamentally we can hang on to that philosophy and that perspective and that understanding of who we are to ourselves and to each other and to the cooperative, the more likely we are to be engaged. So part of the work of member engagement is keeping that philosophy, that mindset, and that language front and center, I believe. So that's one piece I wanted to put on the table. I would welcome people's thoughts and conversation on that. The second piece, I know, lots of the organizations and especially larger organizations do member surveys and market surveys and different things like that where you get some important feedback. One of the things that we did a few years ago, leading up to a strategic planning process, was go out and engage different invested parties in our credit union. We sent out a survey, and this wasn't just about business, if you will. This was much more a broader question around what are the most important issues in our communities today? What are the things that you really want to see Assiniboine Credit Union addressing in our communities? What are the things that companies out there inspire you most by how they're engaged in making the world a better place? And what are the things, and again, kind of what it is that you most admire about ACU in this space? So it wasn't just about being a financial institution. It wasn't just about financial education or services or things like that, although that did come out for sure because that's business we happen to be in, and that's how we impact people's lives in a very direct way. But we specifically engaged employees as member owners who work at the credit union in having this conversation. We, of course, sent it out to our broader member owner group. And we also engaged many other strategic community partners, whether that's groups like Manitoba Co-op Association or SEDNet, or the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, or a whole range of other organizations, other credit unions across the country, for example. Similar kind of question. We had more than 2,000 responses, which is wonderful. And I don't know the exact numbers, but the people at the city of Winnipeg who were doing the Our Winnipeg consultation process uh, said they were very impressed by the response we got. That the city they had wished they gotten that kind of a response to their engagement work. Part of, I think, why the response rate was that high was because we've worked hard at this perspective of being engaged employee member owners, being engaged member owners, and this idea of building effective relationships with other invested parties in our market and in our communities. My belief is that, and this would go back to a lot of the other work, having worked with Vera and the Co-op Association and with the Canadian Seed Network before that, if you want people to be engaged at any given point in time, if that's the first time you've ever spoken to them, it's going to be hard to have them respond and be engaged. If you nurture that relationship in an ongoing way over time, people are much more likely to invest the time to make their voice heard, to make their perspective known, to then give back, if you will. Yes, they're getting something from it because if what the response is to the survey is responding to their identified priority needs, that serves their interests, their communities, and the people around them as well. But they're much more likely to be engaged and involved if that's an ongoing relationship and a philosophy and a perspective that you've nurtured, as opposed to a cold call, of course. So with more than 2,000 responses from all the different groups, we had such a rich wealth, such a rich and broad perspective on how people understood our communities, the priority issues in our communities, and what they wanted to see ACU do about it, which was fantastic, and that fed into our planning process. The other piece, I think, the other opportunity that we had was going through the merger process quite recently with Westoba Credit Union and Case Financial Group and Assiniboine Credit Union. The boards recommended a merger, and so as we know in the co-op world, the board and senior leadership and everybody else can think it's a brilliant idea, but the power is in the hands of the member, of course. And so leading up to the vote, part of what we really committed to was talking to our members and sharing what we saw as the opportunity, but reminding them that it was in their hands. And the number of times where members said, sounds like a great idea, good luck, right? As if they were passive participants in this journey, was really, really high. And so we worked with our employees to be able to respond in that moment and say, I'm glad you are excited about it. It doesn't happen without you. Oh, how come? Because you are one of the owners of the company. You're a member owner. We're a cooperative. It's a democratic process. You need to, along with the other members, make this happen by your vote through this process. And the number of people who, again, who kind of said, oh, I had no idea, tells me that quite often our member owners still feel like it's a membership to be able to participate, but not make decisions in. And so what a great opportunity to set up a process where we talked with our members over the course of a couple of months about the opportunity, but more importantly, about how this opportunity happened and how the decision would be made and the control that the member owners had in the future of our credit union. The power was literally in their hands through a democratic process. So in those 2 months, we worked with our employee teams. So Legacy Assiniboine Credit Union would have had about 500 employees and about 120,000 members. And we started to track conversations that we had over those 2 months. And we were able to track and record, and there was many, many more informal ones, but just through calls and meetings, our call center and the branches, for example, and you guys will have had, many of you who are members will have had multiple communications to you as well and conversations in the branches. And we made it simple to participate. We had tablets in the branches. So if somebody said, oh, sure, hey, well, how do I do it? It's like, right there. Go for it. Um, we're not telling you how to vote. We'll tell you what we think is the opportunity here, but it's ultimately your decision, but we'll make it as easy as possible for you to participate in the democratic process. We were able to record over 50,000 conversations with our members in the course of 8 weeks. Conversations, again, in the branches, over the phone, wherever it might be. And for a lot of the members, you could tell they moved from, I didn't even really understand what a member was, to, I really hope this works. And I'm so excited to have been a part of it. I didn't even realize how this worked and what my role in the cooperative was. So that what it was sort of a unique moment in time to go through the merger, um, because yes, mergers happen more frequently than not, but it's not like that happens every year, like an annual meeting. Um, and an annual meeting will make it a few hundred people out, but we were able to have 50,000 conversations with our members about this because it was a unique moment in time. It was kind of an excuse to engage and talk with, just like our strategic planning process had been a few years earlier. It's like, we're doing a new strategic plan. We want to know what you think. Please tell us, right? You create these moments in time where you can have a unique conversation with them about something really important and remind them that this is what it means to be a member in a co-op. So those are a couple of things I want to just share about our experience and our philosophy and our approach. And would love to see if other people have other perspectives or any further questions about what we've done at ACU.
Thank you, Brendan. I'll just pass it back to Sarah in case she has, ask her if she has any further comments, given the benefit of having heard Brendan now. I don't know if you want to say anything else, but we can certainly open it up to broader questions. I'll just ask Sarah, do you have anything more you want to add?
Sure. Yeah, just a comment. Well, I feel like I need to qualify my vanity metrics comment. Um, but yeah, I really like what Brendan is saying, and when we talk about getting a few more bums in seats at an AGM, that's something that we want for sure. We want to increase participation at any level, but really what Brendan is describing is a transformative experience for many members, and a transformation in the membership, and that's something that can't be captured by numbers alone. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Okay, I'm going to stop our recording now. So